What is up, guys? MSD here, back with another video on Marvel Contest of Champions. As most of you may know, I have finished the Abyss 100%. I am fully done with it now. I never have to go back in there again. And I did it all without Aegon and without Dr. Doom. So this video will be an overview, a quick overview of Path 5, how many units I spent, what fights were difficult, what fights were easy, and my overall thoughts of Abyss now that I have done it fully without Aegon. So without further ado, let's begin. So we start off with Path 5 with Ironman Infinity War. So if we go zoom in right here, we start off with Ironman. So the plan for Ironman was initially going to be Torch and Void, but I did switch it up a little bit. I had such a good run with Human Torch that I just finished off with Corvus. Some of these plans may seem a little off to you because Corvus was like a last minute decision. So the spreadsheet isn't fully updated, but it's mostly updated. So Ironman Infinity War was zero revives used. Most of it was done with Torch, and Corvus finished him off to get 3 charges, so that was really nice. Moving on to Invisible Woman. Invisible Woman was all Nick Fury, 2 revives, not too bad. Gladiator Hulk, this would have been the second and final time I would have fought Gladiator Hulk. I used Void and Nick Fury. It went pretty well, actually. Void got him down in about 5 revives, and then it took 2 revives with Nick Fury to get the rest of them down, so cannot complain. After Gladiator Hulk, Yellow Jacket, the plan was all Nick Fury. This Yellow Jacket went really well, 3 revives with Nick Fury. I'm super happy about how efficient Yellow Jacket was, and yeah, he was by far the best time I fought against Yellow Jacket was then. So yeah, after Yellow Jacket we had Mordo, and this is where I started to get a little frustrated. So Mordo was about 5 revives. I know that's exactly what I predicted, but still, the purpose of the Mordo fight was to build up my Morningstar, and I succeeded in that purpose. It just took me 1 extra revive to get a soul because he evaded at the last second. Fun times. And then I went in with Human Torch, and he just kept on evading me, man, at the worst possible times, and just comboed me into oblivion with that stun. So Mordo was not fun, but by far the worst time I had on this path in terms of just frustration was Mephisto. Mephisto should have been an easy one-shot with Human Torch, but he cost 5 revives. He evaded me on the first time I used my pre-fight and comboed me into oblivion from 70% health to 0, and that pissed me off a lot, because all of the other Mephistos I had one shot, and this was the only one that I didn't. So he cost me 5 revives, which really pissed me off, because Mephisto was such an easy one-shot, but just the evade got me. So nothing I can do about it. It's in the past now, so it is what it is. After Mephisto was Thor Ragnarok, and my original plan for Thor was to use Morningstar and Guillotine 2099, but of course, remember, last minute changes. I ended up using Corvus for Thor Ragnarok. It took me about 6 revives, so on the lower end of my prediction scale, which was pretty good, so I'm definitely happy with how Thor Ragnarok ended up going. After Thor, we have Aegon, the Forsaken. Aegon, Morningstar was the plan, 1 to 2 revives. I hit that straight on the head, 2 revives on Aegon, very, very simple. After Aegon, we had Mr. Sinister. So Mr. Sinister was Human Torch, that was the plan. 1 to 2 revives, got him down in 1 revive, so I was super happy about that. Human Torch makes Mr. Sinister so easy. So that was really good. After Sinister, we had Thing. I didn't really know who to use for Thing. I ended up using Nick Fury. As you can see, I put all champions here kind of preemptively. I didn't know if I was going to end up using every single one of my characters with team revives or something along those lines, but I did end up using Nick Fury. It did cost me about 6 revives, so I still was in the margin of my prediction, but almost over it. So Thing went down okay. After Thing, we get back onto the outskirts of the Abyss, onto Red Skull. So Red Skull, my prediction was about 6 to 10 revives, and I just hit the tail end of my prediction with Nick Fury. It was 10 revives in total for Red Skull. So it honestly, given that Red Skull is one of the worst fights in Abyss, I'm fine with it being 10 revives. But the last time I fought Red Skull with Nick Fury, it was only 7. So I had some crappy RNG. He would throw the specials at the wrong time. He would evade while I was doing my build up. He would clip me. It wasn't a good time. But Red Skull, he went down fairly okay. It wasn't the best takedown. But speaking of best takedown, we had Bishop, and Bishop went very well compared to my last run. My last run at Bishop, was 5 revives. This final run at Bishop was 3 revives. So definitely an increase in terms of effectiveness from Human Torch. I did end up getting pretty lucky as he did not throw his special 3 instantly on my first run, and I got him down maybe 60% on that first run. So very, very happy with that. But yeah, man, I don't know what to say. Bishop went down pretty smoothly. So after Bishop, we move back into the kind of the middle of the Abyss with Symbiote Supreme. So the original intent was Torch and Void. I ended up just using Torch. The prediction was 5 to 8 revives, and it was closer to 8. I believe it was 7 in total. So that's not too bad, but Symbiote Supreme, he's such an annoying fight. I wish the concept of Symbiote Supreme would be the chance to land a critical hit is cut in half, but if you land 20 crits, then you get the degen. Because champs with high crit rate can't do the fight because they'll just die too quickly. So you really just have to get lucky and not crit. So Symbiote Supreme went down with Torch. After Symbiote Supreme, we had Massacre. And boy, let me tell you, once I figured out the strategy for this man, he went down like cake. He just collapsed to Corvus Glaive. It was kind of ridiculous. 3 revives against Massacre with Corvus. Insanity. Such a great fight. Such a fun fight with Corvus. And I really did enjoy that fight with Corvus once I figured out the whole strategy. So that was awesome. And let me know if you guys want to know what the strategy is with Corvus. I will make a video if you so please. Then after Massacre, we move on to the final fork in the road, which is guarded by Omega Red. Omega Red, I didn't really know what to use for him. I ended up using Morningstar for the bulk of it and finished off with Corvus. But the only scary part about this guy is he was the final fork before 100%. If I would have misclicked, it would have been very bad. Oh god, voice crack. It would have been very bad, but luckily I did not, and I moved on to Medusa. So Omega Red, I predicted 1 to 2 revives. It was more like 3 to 4 just because I didn't take into consideration the damage output from Morningstar. So I'm not, at all fussed about 3 revives or 4 revives in Omega Red. It's totally fine. But after Omega, we moved on to Medusa. Medusa, the plan was Morningstar, and I got Medusa down in 1 revive with Morningstar. It went very well, and I am very, very happy that Medusa went down in such an easy fashion because it was a nice little warm up for the Cable fight. So Cable, if many of you don't already know, had the special 1 changed, so his animation will not allow you to full dex it anymore, which means you're taking unnecessary damage in the Abyss. So I predicted for Cable about 1 to 5 revives, and it did end up being 5 revives. I would say I got pretty lucky on the regens. He did trigger it pretty often, so I'm very fortunate that that Cable was as prone to triggering his regen as he was, because if he wasn't, it probably would have been a much worse time. But speaking of much worse time, we have the final 2 fights. We have Karnak and Collector. So Karnak, I don't know if any of you know how I feel about Karnak, but I don't really like him that much just because he's not always going to dash back at you. It will say in his abilities that he's hyper aggressive, but sometimes he's not, and sometimes he'll just throw a light attack and you'll get screwed in your combo. I just don't really like Karnak that much. It cost me about 9 or 10 revives, as you can see, way over the prediction. This was before I had fought Karnak the last time, so I thought, oh yeah, he's not going to be too bad. But yeah, Karnak sucked. I did not like Karnak, and I'm glad I never have to fight him again with Nick Fury. I'm just so happy because every time you would think you're safe going for an intercept, he'll throw a light attack and you're dead. So, fun stuff if you don't have Aegon, which I don't. But then, looks like I need to place my defense. But then we finally move on to the Collector. So, the Collector was pretty interesting this final round. It cost me around 900 units, and that's a lot more than some of the last times I fought Collector, but he just wasn't really playing into me a lot and would evade at the worst times and throw the special one, and you'd think you have the full decks, but you don't. Just wasn't a fun time, this Collector. At least this one, because the last two weren't that bad, but this one, there was something about him that made me think, like, oh yeah, Kabam doesn't want me to get this done without Aegon, so they tuned his AI up to 11. But nevertheless, he went down in, I believe it was 8 team revives and 3 single revives. So, definitely not my best showing against Collector, but without Aegon, I will more than take that amount of units spent on him. So, before I get into my final thoughts and wrap up, my overall cost for this path was about 3,800 units, maybe a little less. I believe it was more like 3,780, but we'll just say 3,800 units for this path. 900 of those were on Collector, so on the path in total, from Ironman to Karnak, I spent around 3,000 to 3,100 units. I'm not very surprised. Path 4 and Path 5 are pretty challenging, so getting those paths done in 3,000 units without Aegon was very, very, very nice. It gave me a nice sense of accomplishment. Not only doing the final paths without Aegon, but just doing Abyss in general without Aegon. And I feel like this is a perfect segue into how I feel about Abyss, what I'm looking forward to in terms of the rewards update, because those are apparently coming. That was a huge shock to all of us, but I'm very happy that they're deciding to do it. So, with the Abyss, I think, and this is my personal opinion and feelings, if you interpret this in the wrong way, I truly apologize. I do not mean to sound crass in any way, but I personally do not recommend trying to 100% the Abyss if you don't have Aegon or you're not that skilled. I'm not trying to sound crass. I'm not trying to downplay like people or players in the community. That's not what I'm trying to do at all. I'm just saying from my personal experience in the Abyss, being considered an endgame top tier player, I would not recommend trying to do more than one path in the Abyss without an Aegon or some form of high damage tier champion, and without some form of skill. I know there's just that you can just roll through Abyss with units, and of course anyone can do that with enough funds, but if you want to enjoy the content, I seriously do not recommend trying to 100% it. If you don't think you're very, very skilled at this game, if you have to understand your own skill level, like, okay, I can manage this fight, but I know I'm not really good at, XYZ. And I don't recommend 100%ing it without an Aegon, or at least most of the horsemen. I did it with Nick Fury and Human Torch. Nick Fury I only had for 3 paths. Human Torch I had for all 5. So those guys were definitely my MVPs, as well as She-Hulk. But from my personal experience, I think Abyss is great. I think it's super fun, and I think the easy path can be done with a lot of different characters, but trying to get more than one path done in Abyss without Aegon and not being a highly skilled player is just, it's not going to work out well. You might get really frustrated. You could get very roadblocked at fights like Korg, or fights like Dormammu, or Venom the Duck. So or Green Goblin even. And I just don't recommend trying to 100% Abyss without Aegon and without some form of skill. Easy path really doesn't matter. You can have a little fun with that, but the rest of the paths, I honestly recommend either wait for an Aegon, build up some units, just practice at the game, or if you have a lot of the horsemen, you can try, but not everyone is going to have the same experience that I have because of how skilled I am with this game. I'm not trying to have some superiority complex. I'm just saying that not most people aren't going to have the same experience in Abyss that I am. So I'm going to leave it at that. I truly don't know what else to say. I enjoyed, I want to say 80% of the Abyss. A good 20% of it was just not fun to me, but probably partly because I didn't have Aegon. But nevertheless, thank you all so much. God, excuse me. Thank you all so much for watching this Abyss Path 5 breakdown and overall thoughts. Be on the lookout in about a week and a bit for Doomsday, June 2nd. I will be opening 5 or 6 6-star crystals for Doctor Doom. And who knows, maybe we'll get some news on the updated Abyss rewards fairly soon. I'm hoping to see at least 2 T5 CC selectors, maybe 20k more 6-star shards, and hey, who knows, maybe a 6-star exclusive champion like Iron Spider, because he was teased. So, nevertheless, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next video.